The 2026 conflict erupted while diplomacy was still producing significant movement. It is the logical conclusion of a recurring flaw in modern statecraft. The closer two nations move toward an operational agreement, the more the surrounding environment destabilizes. In February 2026, as indirect talks in Geneva reached a critical breakthrough, U.S. and Israeli intelligence observed a rapid shift on the ground. Iranian engineers began using the diplomatic pause to seal underground nuclear facilities with concrete and soil, moving them deeper than conventional bunker busters could reach. On February 28, the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury. The 12-hour campaign consisted of 900 strikes that decimated the Iranian Navy and successfully targeted Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei before he could go into hiding. Progress at the negotiating table accelerated the timeline for a preemptive strike. By moving closer to a compromise, both sides inadvertently closed the window of military advantage, dragging Washington into a calculated regional trap. Following the initial strikes, the regime transitioned to a cost attrition strategy. They flooded the region with primitive Shahed attack drones, expendable aircraft powered by motorcycle engines and manufactured in basic facilities. This chart reveals the ruinous math of the 2026 battlefield. Intercepting a single $20,000 drone requires a Patriot PAC-3 missile costing $4.2 million. The defense is over 200 times more expensive than the attack. In the first 2 weeks of the drone swarms, the U.S. military fired roughly 800 Patriot missiles. This 14-day expenditure exceeds the total number used in 4 years of the war in Ukraine. This burn rate clashes with the capacity of the U.S. industrial base, which produces only about 100 comparable Standard missiles in an entire year. This lopsided return on interception leads to a state of unilateral disarmament. Every missile fired at a low-cost drone in the Middle East is a missile unavailable for the defense of the Pacific. Geography remains Tehran's most effective lever. On March 2, the mining of the Strait of Hormuz cut off 20% of the world's daily oil supply, causing Brent crude prices to reach $126 a barrel within 6 days. This map illustrates the impact of the China exception policy. While Chinese-flagged ships were permitted to pass the blockade, Western vessels were forced to detour around the Cape of Good Hope, adding $1 million in fuel costs to every trip. Global rivals are the primary beneficiaries of this disruption. Russia captures the windfall from soaring energy prices, while China secures its supply lines and expands its influence, with Gulf states losing confidence in the Western security umbrella. Tactical success in the air secured a strategic advantage for Washington's adversaries. The U.S. military achieved its kinetic objectives while simultaneously exhausting its own missile stocks and ceding energy dominance to its competitors. The decapitation of the leadership failed to trigger the expected civilian uprising. In the Shiite historical memory, the death of Khamenei was reframed as a martyrdom, consolidating public sentiment around the regime. Power transitioned immediately to Mojtaba Khamenei. Under his leadership, the Islamic Republic has evolved into a hardened security state, where the military establishment maintains order through absolute internal repression and aggressive forward defense. This scenario echoes the historical irony of the F-14 Tomcat. Throughout the 2000s, the Pentagon paid contractors millions to shred its own retired F-14 fleet into unrecognizable rubble, specifically to prevent spare parts from reaching the very country the U.S. originally sold them to. The 2026 conflict has settled into a mutually hurting stalemate. Tehran's goal is coercive endurance, surviving the assault while imposing asymmetric costs that make the continuation of the war politically impossible for Washington. Tactical brilliance is no substitute for strategic wisdom. The United States successfully eliminated the old guard, only to face a more resilient enemy, leaving Washington trapped in a multi-billion-dollar game of attrition it can no longer afford to win.